Hi, hello everyone. We're live. Well, it's 5 p.m. set centralized time. Why don't we give 5 minutes? Just everybody likes to appear a little bit later. And then obviously, Patrick, I would like to introduce you to everybody on this webinar. So let's just give a little bit, I would say 3 minutes past 5. We can begin, and that way other people can start joining in, and they can listen to a great conversation of DeFi meets TradFi, and then we can explain what is DeFi. We can explain TradFi, and then we can have a lot of fun.
Okay, great. Hello, Edwin. Buenos días.
Actually, it's buenas tardes. Buenos días.
Good morning. Buenas tardes. Sí.
Let's give it a little bit of time. Well, since it's recorded and I don't want to abuse your time, why don't we just get this ball rolling? So obviously, just a little bit of background. My name is Edwin Mata. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bricken. Bricken is a tokenization platform. We specialize on providing the infrastructure and technology for companies of any size to be able to digitize their financial instruments. We believe in that everything is going to be tokenized, and we've been here for 5 years. And now, since I'm not the relevant guest on this afternoon, I would like to introduce Patrick. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Edwin, and hello to everybody outside there in the world. Yes, my name is Patrick Hennes. I am expert for the next generation finance and also of the traditional finance. I'm working at DZ Private Bank in Luxembourg as head of transfer agent development and DLT. I have a background of 30 years, in fact, in finance. Public finance and private finance. I was, in fact, 30 years back ago, I was the youngest ever manager of the European Social Fund for the Belgian government. Then I came to Luxembourg. I've been for 26 years now in Luxembourg in the fund industry, asset servicing industry, and for a decade now, also working with fintechs on blockchain technology, where I tried to bridge, in fact, TradFi in DeFi since 2015 using blockchain technology for the asset management industry.
Perfect. That's super interesting. That's a very nice career. And I think just for people who are jumping in, before we continue with the conversations, I would like just to, can you define in as simple as possible what for you is TradFi and what for you is DeFi? And then that way we can jump in the matter, because I think the starting is not a lot of people understand the terminologies that sometimes we use. So I think starting point would be, if they're going to be interested, what is TradFi for you and what is DeFi for you?
Okay, very easy for the TradFi, the traditional finance institution. So it's, let's say it in a simple word, it's the banks and all what is turning around banks. So banks for private people, banks for corporate, investment funds, the area where I am working in. So this is in simple words explaining what is traditional finance. So working with SWIFT, with legacy systems, having a bank account, having bank cards, Visa cards, MasterCards, all this is around traditional finance. For DeFi, it's the decentralized finance. It's in fact this movement that we see since around 10 years, maybe a little bit longer for other people. Everybody is a little bit connecting this to the appearance of Bitcoin. It's not really that for me. For me, the decentralized finance is in fact the next level of the traditional finance, where we still use all the processes, all the things that we know about traditional finance, but putting it on a specific digital layer. So we are not changing the financial world, where the basis remains. We are evolving laws, but we are putting a new technology layer on existing things. And that's the decentralized finance for me.
Thank you very much. That was a great definition, I think. So now that we enter into the sauce of the matter, we understand what is TradFi, traditional finance, and DeFi, the new layer, decentralized finance. Um, you are obviously working on both, coming from the TradFi and now entering more into the DeFi sort of things. How do you see the line between both becoming to blur, or is it two completely different ecosystems that they don't mix? Are they mixing? What do you see the current state of things?
But the current state of things is that both worlds are, let's say, starting a wedding. Okay, they're starting a common life, which was not the case 10 years ago when I started with blockchain technology, analyzing it, the opportunities or the possibilities to use it for the asset management industry, which is in fact my expertise. So both industries are coming together. In the beginning, it was more sandbox stuffs that we did. It was the learning curve that has to be built up. We were stopping again because it was in the beginning, there was a time it was not always good to tell people that you are working on blockchain. So it was we were a little circle, not talking to the regulator that we are working on it. This has completely changed. There is, I would say, there is a maturing of different elements. There is the maturing of the infrastructure itself, the technology, what has been built since 2015, 2016. There is a maturing also in regulation, and a heavy maturing in regulation. Personally, I have seen the development and the evolution in Luxembourg of 4 blockchain laws that I had the chance, in fact, to sit in working groups at the Banking Association, Fund Association, working and reviewing those laws for the Ministry of Finance. So there is a maturing and a groundation that has been given in regulation, and gives also a good feeling to the industry that there is a regulation framework. And there is also, I would say, I see currently a strategic timing from the market to go into a direction of, let's say, tokenization of assets. And it can only go with both industries. It can only go with the traditional finance, but because it's still there is the market. And it can only go with the DeFi industry, with fintechs, because they are the experts of the technology. That's what I am always seeking also when I do my projects, when I analyze things, or when I'm reviewing value chains. That is to see where are the best experts in the part that I want to improve in my value chain. So we in the traditional finance, we are the competence center. Let's say for my area in Luxembourg, we are the competence center of the fund industry. So we know exactly what to do. We know all the regulation, AML, KYC, transfer agency, depository bank stuffs. This is all the things that we are mastering it. But we are doing this on legacy systems. Now the market is demanding new things. The market wants more efficiency. The market wants faster products or faster processes, and this we cannot do it with legacy systems that we have currently. So we are conscious that new technology has been developed not to be just a gimmick there. It has been developed, in fact, to stay and to integrate into the traditional finance. So the traditional finance will not adapt to the DeFi world, that's for sure, but we will certainly adopt it. That's for sure as well.
I like that phrase, huh? How you explain the
Yeah.
end that, well, I mean, it's all about adaptation, right? So I know that you explain a little bit further, like the current state. Obviously, coming from a long time, understanding the two worlds. Because if I don't recall from a private conversation we had, you said that it was 2015, 16 when you enter this space. So that's over a decade, which in crypto a year is like 10 years by default. So you've been in
Yeah.
the space for 100 years. Would you say that now there's a serious signs that it's serious interest from institutionals, or are we still at that curiosity level to trying to understand how this is going to affect them in the near future?
No, there is, in fact, yeah, you are right. I'm a decade in it. And it was, maybe we start a little bit with the beginnings of this decade, because I was the project manager in Luxembourg for the first initiative to tokenize an investment fund. Okay, so we didn't this on a real investment fund, but we created an initiative in Luxembourg with different big market players, with a big four company. So I was director at PwC at that time. And we worked with a startup company. And it was the first time that I was in real contact with the startup environment. So it was a new world for me. And we started this, but we were real pioneers. Right? So we were
Right.
alone somewhere in our rooms. We were sometimes 50 people looking even at the dark web. What's that? And yeah, we created at one moment, we created the first token of an investment, of a dummy investment fund. We did the first subscription in collaboration with the University of Luxembourg as well. And it was an amazing moment to see that, the first time that there is a token, it goes on an Ethereum blockchain, crazy things. And when I say crazy things, that we were really crazy guys, and we were seen as crazy guys. I went around the world on conferences, on scenes. I was speaker in Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, New York, Malta, Paris, wherever, and I was talking about this initiative, which was called FunChain, and everybody was looking at me. What is this guy talking about? This will never ever happen. That was the feeling that I received from the audience. So now we are 10 years later. Okay, or say 8 years later, when I talk about the road show that I did. Now we are 8 years later, and I saw a real shift at a specific date, which was the 30th of December 2024.
Okay.
Introduction of MiCA.
Of course.
So now MiCA is a regulatory framework. Bam, it's straight. Traditional finance is straight. And that was for traditional finance the moment. Hey guys, we need to look at it. Huh? There are projects, there are fund managers asking for tokenization. There is art, gold, all these things. They are tokenized. Private banks were looking at it. The fund managers were looking at it, and there is a speed. Since the 30th of December 2024, I am always running, okay? And I'm doing a running like a marathon for the moment, but as a speed of Usain Bolt. I have to run a 100-meter sprint inside of a marathon, because everybody is talking about, is asking about. And this is this maturity of the regulation that has brought in a big shift. That's the first point. The second point is also the maturity of the infrastructure, of the technology infrastructure itself, that traditional finance can see now. Because in the beginning, nobody understood what is a blockchain, what is cryptography, what is a token, what is a wallet. I still have discussion with people about what is a wallet. But now there is a maturity also in the knowledge of different levels in financial institutions. So we are not only now the crazy guys. We are no longer alone, the crazy guys, there is middle management, top management, who is aware about what we are talking about. And this is great because now we receive in traditional finance the mandates from top management to go for this technology. So I am permanently scanning the market. I am scanning the market for tokenization platforms, for digital custody providers, for digital onboarding providers, to see what are these products and services that they provide, where can we put it into our value chain, and what are the new products or new processes that we can provide to our clients. So we are client focused now with this new technology, and this is a shift which has been enormous in the last 12 months. I've seen. I did already 3 years ago a tokenization project. It was a kind of proof of concept. We went to a minimum viable product, but we never go to the market with it. Now we are at a stage where the market is demanding. We have to go to the market. So we need really to have the best products in the market to fit them into our value chain. Right? Then, I talked about the infrastructure, the momentum. For the infrastructure, it's very important to see also the standardization that we have. We are not talking only about first layer blockchain. This is something we talked about it 10 years ago. We are talking about layer 2. Lately, somebody asked me, are you looking to permissioned or permissionless infrastructures? I say, I don't care about it. I say, I look really at the infrastructure that a service provider, a software provider can give to me. And what standard is he using? Is it secure for my company? Is it understandable? How is the governance either of the infrastructure and of the company itself? So those are all these elements that makes that these two worlds can live together.
So I have a question there, kind of like you said something that really struck me, and they say I have the mandate. Kind of like back in the past, it was more like creating an R&D department and then saying, oh, maybe we're gonna see what is this. But when you have a mandate, that means that's an obligation of potentially incorporating this new tech into some of the flows of an institution. So with this radical change, I think, or my perception would be that, as you said, you need to look for certain things when you incorporate the tech, not just the tech, but the company itself. So is it like what I'm trying to say here is, what would you say, just to make it super simple, if possible, obviously, the three main things you look when assessing a provider in the blockchain business?
Okay. I will make it simple, but bon, you know me now. I can always talk hours.
I know you do it simple. You do it simple still. Don't worry, Patrick.
Yeah. Just to come back a little bit on this wording about the mandate. Yeah, I am empowered now, and like a lot of my peers in the market, we are empowered by management to do so. Okay? Before you are right, we were a little bit doing R&D. We did it next to our business as usual job. Sometimes we were seen as the artists in the bank. But now it's a real job. Okay. So now when we have to analyze a provider, a company, it's like we do it in the same way as we do it for our traditional tasks. Okay. For example, if I have to look for a service provider to make a reporting, then I have a certain procedure to respect in the bank. But we do it the same way now with fintechs. So they go through a process. where we select companies, where we have specific due diligence procedures. And I have, with my background also of a big four company, I've brought in a lot of, I would say, tools that I can use, reuse, knowledge that I can reuse to assess companies, to assess services, to understand how the technology works, how the company works, and how could it fit into our structure. So without giving any secret of my job, I can tell you how I work. Generally, I scan the market. So it's very easy today with LinkedIn, with Google. ChatGPT is a wonderful tool as well. I work mainly with dressing up sort of a long list, short list. I make a first contact with the companies. I make a first introduction call. I see that already if it's a serious company or not a serious company. They receive generally a questionnaire with our needs and to see what capabilities they have. Generally, I request for a demo afterwards. If I say yes, they are worthy to go into the next step with us. And then there is something, this has been born a little bit with my experience between TradFi and DeFi. I go always with everybody into a proof of concept phase. So generally it's mainly 2 or 3 companies that will a little bit compete ones against the other in a proof of concept to see who fits the best with our need. So this is from the business point of view. So what is the need from the business point of view? On the other side, and this is also my job, is to analyze the company itself. Because in traditional finance, we are very keen about the substance of a company. So I have seen in the last decade a lot of startup companies. I have analyzed startup companies. I have accompanied startup companies. I helped out for business plans with companies. I made risk assessment of startup companies. I have seen also companies in their beginning phase that are now in their exit phase, in the very good exit phase. So this is very, I'm very happy about this, to have the chance to experience this. But this gives me now also, I would say, the background and enough credibility to analyze all these companies and to say, this company will never fit to our needs from a governance point of view. This company is good, it fits, there is substance. And when I say substance, what I check always is, first of all, I want to see financial statements. And even for a startup company, I want to see financial statements because the figures, they tell me a lot of things. It's like I look at the financial statements I like a picture or a painter, and I can see really amazing things in this. You can see how a company is managed, because if the company is not well managed, how can they manage an infrastructure that I will use for my clients, where I have a responsibility for my investors that I manage on it, for my fund managers and everybody that is on this platform. So if they cannot manage their company, then we'll have a problem. What we want also to see in traditional finance is a very strong corporate governance itself. So a startup company with 3 guys, 5 guys, it can grow, of course, and I have seen this, but I take a risk. If I cannot see financial statements, if I have no real board, if I cannot, if there is no transparency about shareholders, I have a risk. And then it's up to me, or if I can talk for my peers, up to my peers, to see how big is my risk appetite. Will I start with them, or will I prefer a well-managed startup company with a board, with independent advisors, with audited financial statements, with an audited infrastructure that they want to sell me? So these are really important points that can lead to, I always say, a green flag or a red flag. If I have too many red flags, it is an issue. But don't take it wrong. I have already worked with startup companies that in the beginning all the flags were light red. Okay, but
Well,
it's up also to us from the traditional finance. And here I make a call to all the so-called fintech advisors, fintech lawyers that work with those companies. Instead of in the beginning already start to sell or to promote their products, please help them first to create the real structure of the company. Because the product, I have seen a lot of companies with great products, and really, it's not very often that I say the product is shit. But I have seen a lot of companies with amazing products, but without any clue about how to manage a company. And this is really for traditional finance a problem. We can mitigate it. I have already experienced the case of engaging with a startup company, but then you have to make very strong contracts, including a stepping risk clause in the contract. So, because this is a problem for traditional finance, we cannot engage with somebody where we have, at the end of the day, put the money into the company. We are willing to buy a service, a software, but the company must be sufficiently strong from a finance point of view to survive. Because when we take the use case of tokenization, and in tokenization, there are two elements for me who are important. You can interrupt me, Edwin, if you have a question.
no, no, no. No. By all means, I mean it's supposed to be a learning process. I'm understanding the whole flow and structure on decision making as to how an institution can pick up a startup, because we know innovation usually comes from the startup, not from the big corporation. We
Of course,
understand the
that's
big
right.
corporations, sometimes they try to build infrastructure or technology that they don't even end up using. I've seen
Yeah.
that happening a lot of times. Kind of like they decide to build on their own blockchain, and it's like, why did you decide to build on your blockchain? And now I have always seen how institutions, if they want to thrive, they have to go through the decision making of kind of like, should I rely on the startup with all of the potential risk, or should I go to the big corporation because they're a big corporation, but maybe the level of innovation is not there. So it's a very complicated decision process. And nowadays, just to add, we're seeing a lot of even startups. We use it, for example, just to be transparent here, we call it ourselves institutional grade. And it is why do we use institutional grade? And just to give you assurance, because on our end as a startup, we think that we have fulfilled certain parameters that,
Yeah.
for me, coming from an M&A sector, or I used to do a lot of work for this kind of thing, is I feel confident that I can fulfill an RFP from an institution. Like, that's when I decided to name ourselves institutional grade, because in a process of 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 going through a no, it's not a contest, that's the word in English, through a potential buy-in from a company, from an
Yeah.
institution, you centrally send an RFP.
It's an RFP
And
process. Yeah.
I don't know what is going to be the questions or how you're going to deal, but I feel confident now that we could be able to fulfill that RFP regardless of who it is. So that's when I decided Bricken could be institutional grade. So it's kind of like the market itself is trying to situate innovation, startups, institution into one big coherent bag, and there's a lot of tricks, and I'm learning a lot with you, because obviously it's not such a clear process. It's never I call the startup, I want to hire you. It never happens like that.
No.
We know that. But a lot of people out there think like, oh yeah, why don't the bank hires you? And it's like, what is the process for a bank to hire a single new product, or the months or the amount of the process itself? And it's very clear now with your explanation, like it's not simple at all. There's a lot of parameters just to even begin a conversation.
Yeah, it's we have packages. We have packages of questionnaires. You talked about a request for proposal, an RFP process. There are other requests that we can do. We can do a request for information, for example. If we want to know what the company is able to do, we send a request for information. But in the request for information, you will have already a package of questions about your company. So we can also ask simply a request for quote. If we want only to buy a service, we can send a request for quote. So I have all these packages on my desk, virtual desk, I would say, and I can send out whatever I want. But there is, as I said before, there is a very long process that I have to do, because I scan the market, I make first talks. Before that you receive any document from me, Edwin, it takes already a long time, okay? Before you receive any questionnaire, it takes already a long time, and I must feel confident. But you said one important thing as well, this wonderful new buzzword, institutional grade. It's a very funny thing that I see on a lot of websites of startup companies, that they are institutional grade. I would see how they received this stamp, institutional grade, because who has given that to them? Okay. No, I'm a little bit sarcastic now. But
no, it's good, because it is true. We don't know. There's not a compliance body.
No, but I make again this call to all these fintech advisors, fintech lawyers, or also to the big four companies, or also to my peers, to profiles like me, because I like startup company. Really, I like the startup company mode. It's amazing, and it's really, really helpful for traditional finance. Myself, I have introduced in my working procedures with my team a startup mood. We work under certain startup parameters, like agile. Well, agile was already for startups something. I introduced a principle which is called mission command. So to make projects, we have little teams with the specialists from the business line, specialists from my team, specialists from IT, and we push forward projects. It's a way to work very fast, because traditional work is very slow, but we introduce this to work faster, to be aligned also with startup companies. For example, legacy systems have release cycles. And legacy systems have release cycles from 6 months to 1 year. So I need already to know now what I have for a need today that I want to have in 1 year in my software. This is crazy, okay? When I talk to companies like you, I can tell you I have a need, okay? You have your tokenization platform. When I tell you, okay, I need this or this functionality because it's necessary for the fund industry, you can tell me, yes, my guys can do this for you in 2 weeks or in 4 weeks, depending on the sprint cycle that you have. This is what I experienced with a lot of startup companies, and it's amazing. This is something I've never seen this with legacy systems. Okay, I have to write a business requirement document. Then I have to write a technical specification. Then it goes to committees and so forth. Okay. When I want a functionality from you, we can sit together. I go to the whiteboard. I write your process down, and you have already behind me is already your developer. He's coding already. No?
Actually, that's true. That is true. Right
I
now, our developers are coding already. Patrick
yeah,
from this call is like grab all the know-how, embed it
I,
into the platform because that's right. We're lean and quick.
yeah. I have a little anecdote about this. Back 10 years ago or 8 years ago, on the Fund Chain initiative, I went to this startup company which was with us in the initiative, and I was with two colleagues of PwC. We were in our with a skirt, in our suit, and we went to the startup company. All these guys, and we were sitting on sofas. So we had normally in the office we had chairs. There we had sofas. We had a whiteboard there, and we had one developer and one agile manager in the same room. And these guys were, I think they were in shorts and t-shirt. Okay. So I was with my director's colleague explaining how works a subscription into an investment fund. It was 4 p.m. in the afternoon when we left this meeting room. I went back to them at 9 o'clock in the morning the next day, and they showed me on the Ethereum blockchain, they showed me a subscription into a token. It was amazing.
That's nice. The
Yeah.
efficiency level, huh?
Yes.
But I mean, it can no super good. Let's continue on this matter because now we're talking about kind of like the adoption, but we should also look into other things that neglect adoption. Because I won't say the legality, because there's not so more clear. There's a lot of gray areas. What I want to know is, what do you think makes the institutional, or what do they struggle to understand to adopt something which, for example, you are very keen into, the tokenization of funds or financial instruments. So what are they struggling to understand, and where do you think they're lacking of, and what would you propose to them? Kind of like, here's a tip of advice for you non-believers. What would it be?
I would say there are three areas that we can talk about in this regard. There are three risks which are slowing down the adoption, or who make that institutions are not probably understanding things, or no, that's the wrong way. They understand. Traditional finance understand now what is going on, but we have still a legal and regulatory risk that we have to cope with. We have a technical risk, and we have an operational risk. And I will explain the three risk types. The legal risk it's more a challenge than a risk. So I dilute a little bit my wording there, because there is a lack. Still, we have MiCA in Europe, okay, but there is still a lack of clarity around the legal status of tokenized assets. Okay. I tried the beginning of the year, after MiCA, when everything was around, when ESMA came with the guidelines and things like that, I drafted a matrix to understand MiCA and to understand, when I have a starting point with an ID, this is a token that I want to have, to analyze what is it at the end. Is it an art? Is it an EMT? Or is it a real world asset token? Is it a MiFID II financial instrument? Is it not in MiCA then? And things like that. So this is something everybody is struggling around that. It's not you are struggling around that when you discuss with your clients. We are struggling, and the regulator is also struggling. So
Absolutely.
But we should not continue to struggle. We should sit around the table as soon as we have an ID or a question, and the three parties should talk together, and then we find a solution. That's for sure, because everything is a sort of best practice, and there is no best practice until now, because the starting point is here. It's exploding here, everything. So the best practice will be the interpretation that we do of a new product that we want to launch, and the regulation that is on the other side. And we have to see where fits it in. Okay, probably. Well, I don't want to start to talk about Mika 2, but Mika 2 will come because we are experiencing new products, new projects, and only with experience you can see what is right, what is wrong. So this is the first challenge or the first risk. Okay, that traditional finance see, and where traditional finance has a problem with adoption, because as traditional finance always asks the lawyer or the regulator, can we do this? Are we allowed to do this? And if there is no answer, there is a problem. That's why talking together, communicating is the best way to cope with such a situation. So the second risk that I have said, or let's continue with a positive word, the next challenge is the technical challenge itself. So when we talk about tokenization, we are not only talking about the blockchain where some things are recorded. We are talking mostly, when I talk about tokenization, about the smart contracts, because in the smart contracts, all the rules are in. It's the algorithm, it's the process itself. When I take again an example of the fund industry, in the fund industry, we have a fund prospectus, which is in the private market, the white paper. So which describe the product, describe the rules and everything. In the tokenization world, the smart contract has to translate the prospectus. The prospectus becomes digital. So, and here is a big challenge, because who can say today that he exactly knows that a smart contract is the one-to-one translation of the prospectus? So who can give the stamp on this, validate this? Okay, so there is a challenge, and myself, I cannot say today this smart contract or this smart contract is secure on that. I believe you are the platform, there are other platforms. I have to trust, and this is a very important statement here. We have to build trust. You have to build the trust. We have to build the trust. We have to accept both trustworthy systems, so that works with standards. Okay, so here comes the next step in this technical risk. We need to have standards. Like in traditional finance, there is one of the biggest standards in traditional finance is SWIFT. Okay, in tokenization world, we need to have standards so that everybody can understand that a smart contract for a prospectus is this must have these attributes, then he is compliant. Okay, when I say standard, I don't say creating a monopoly. Absolutely not. A standard must be something that the whole market agrees on, and a standard can be provided by different providers. Okay, I don't want to have a world where I have only one provider with one smart contract standard, but we have to define a standard where we say this is a compliance standard. And this works for the fund prospectus that has to be translated, a white paper that has to be translated, but it goes also, and we haven't talked today, I can come back if you want, I come back another day. We have to talk about AML KYC, because AML KYC is the starting point for everything in the financial world. If I am not compliant with AML KYC, I cannot start any project of tokenization. So here is also a challenge on different sides. Is a challenge on the technical side, is a challenge also on the regulatory side. We as traditional guys need to trust that the smart contract that accepts an investor and validates an investor has a compliance standard. Then, now we come to the second layer. the smart contract of the fund prospectus and the smart contract of the investor who make the AML KYC compliance, those both standards must be compliant. And my AML standard must be compliant for the whole market. And I can tell you, I have worked on different AML KYC standardization projects. It's a nightmare because you have a kind of matrix with attributes for AML KYC that is a regulatory standard, but the interpretation of the attributes itself can differ from one institution to another. I had of one of my projects the example of two banks in Luxembourg. We tried to have a standard on different attributes. So there is one attribute is, for example, the profession of an investor. This was standard for both, okay? We had as example, we took a university professor, okay? Then one bank said to me, that's fine for me. This allows me to go further in my risk assessment. The second bank told me, no, Patrick, no, I need another additional step. I want to know from which university he is a professor. Okay? So here you can only have standardization of AML compliance and AML compliance smart contracts if the whole market talks together. So mutualization of standards can only go through open communication. Now I come to the third and last risk for the adoption, which is the operational risk. So traditional finance is very process heavy. Everything is written down in processes, and automatization from processes is not something that is standardized for the moment. A lot of things are manual. Okay, there is a lot of Excel stuff, access stuff, which we should remove slowly but surely. But to adopt an automatization of things that people are doing currently is not so easy, because processes must be adapted to this. Currently, a person is doing a job, is doing a checklist, everything is written down in a procedure. When in the future, an algorithm, a smart contract is doing that, the person who did the job before must understand the smart contract. That's the first thing, because we will not replace the person who did the job before, but the person will become an expert of the process, of the automated process itself. And this person will also be empowered to monitor everything and will only in the future make a sort of workflow exception management. So creating a sort of expertise. Then from an operational risk side, there is another important element when we come really back to the specificity of tokenization and digital custody. We can do also a specific session on that if you want, Edwin, on digital custody. Because we are in traditional finance the bookkeeper of the investment of our investors, of our clients. We are the bookkeeper of the right that they have to something. Okay, so when I take an investment fund and I keep the register of the shareholders of an investment fund, I am the bookkeeper. I am empowered by law, and I am obliged to do this. I have to provide at every moment this register. When we digitalize it, we put it on, from my point of view, on the most important element of the tokenization process, that is the digital custody wallet, where all the keys are stored. A lot of people think still today that in this digital wallet they have the fund, the investment fund. This is not right. They are just the keys to prove that you have a right on an investment fund. So, And this is key now. That's the right word to say. The digital custody wallet is the key of all those keys for us to prove that all the investors are the owner of something. So if this digital wallet fails, if the company fails of this digital custody wallet, then we have a problem. And this is something where that's a fear that the industry has when we start conversation with digital custody wallet providers, for example, to say, hey guys, what happens when this wallet is no longer there? So these are, for me, it was a little bit long now, Edwin, sorry for that, but these are
No, not at all. I mean, you're explaining the whole process and what you guys are looking into, so it's super interesting for everybody to understand before they approach an institution how to approach the institution. It's not just sending an email. They should be prepared to be able to engage in these questions and understand how they think, because it's completely different. I do self custody and I work with a custodian, but I don't look for that level of excellence just because we're in a different sector or a different position.
Yep.
So to move forward, before we have our last 10 minutes, I would like to know more about kind of like, we understand the processes, the constraints, but let's finish out with the positive note, the opportunities. So adoption. There's been a lot of movements over the past couple of years, the ETFs, the legalities behind the upgrades of legality around security or tokenization, MiCA. So we get into a better point, right? So from this kind of like merge that you are in between, um, where do you think what is the next big step for you? The true collaboration between TradFi DeFi is this tokenization of financial instruments. Is it stable coins and then banks having duality of fiat, USDT, USDC in the same bank account for the retail? Where do you think like the next big true convergence between TradFi and DeFi? Let's put it in the short term this year, and then why not a little bit further down the line?
No, there are a lot of elements that I can talk about in your question.
All right, let's go.
Because you introduce now another element, the stable coins. But let's start first with the tokenization without stable coins. So yeah, we are at the, I think we are at the big starting point for tokenization of financial instruments. But we will not. There is no revolution. There is an evolution of the systems, and we are what I aim to do is to create a duality of systems. We will always have people who will come in through the traditional paths and media's distribution channels, and we will have and in the beginning always everybody said, yeah, these are the digital natives, they're coming in, or those people who like digital. This is no longer true. The people are used now to have booking.com, Airbnb, Uber, Bolt, and finance is not excluded from this movement. Okay, so we have, everybody has it on his phone, everybody has it on his tablet, and there is not a choice for traditional finance to say I will take it or I will skip it. No, I have to take it, because otherwise I will exclude a certain share of market from my institution, and that's the point. So you cannot, I will not sign now on a paper, Edwin, it's in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, but we are at a starting point. So projects are coming in. We go live. Everybody, there are financial institutions are going live with projects. There are projects in private markets, so private equity funds, money market funds, which is a big area that is using or starting to use tokenized or digitalized shares. There are other digital assets that that I see in the market. I have seen already before, but I see them now coming in, like gold, for example. Gold is something where institutions are thinking about to tokenize it. Art. So for example, for wealth manager, private banks, family offices, this is something interesting. But okay, I can talk a lot of from my side about investment funds. So I see really the momentum is there. We have to take it, and we take it. That's for sure. Now, your point about the stable coins. This is a point we discussed already about this 8 years ago. We didn't call it a stable coin at that moment. It was it was the digi euro, we called it, or you can say also is a sort of a cash backed fiat account. So you can escrow fiat currency on an account, and you can represent it on the blockchain in a digital way. And we need it. We need stable coins. We need a digitalized fiat. Why do we need it? Because if we remain with our traditional payment cycles, now, okay, we have there is the instant payment directive. Banks are obliged to provide instant payment, but
Obliged.
yeah, but I
Because
experienced.
my bank is not applying it.
Yeah, voila. I experienced last weekend. I had to move some money from one account to one of my cards because I was traveling. But okay, I did it on Friday after 2 p.m. I have received the money on Tuesday morning because there was a legal holiday in Luxembourg. Okay, so if we want to create efficiency and to create, and allow me the word, sexy products for the market, we need to have a sort of a stable coin and an instrument that really can be used as an instant payment mean, yeah, with all the regulatory framework behind. So this is what we in traditional finance are seeking for. We are willing to use digitalized fiat currencies, okay, but it must cope with the regulatory framework, okay. Now there is another very important element to think about when we're talking about stable coins, because it could not only be, it is an enormous challenge for the fund manager itself about liquidity, because if the passive side of an investment fund, so when I'm talking about the passive side, it's the investor who makes subscription redemptions, yeah, when this side is very liquid, but the underlying asset side of the investment fund, so what the fund manager is invested in. So if a fund manager is invested in Coca-Cola, Apple, or whatever shares, these shares cannot, for the moment, cannot have the same settlement cycle than a stable coin for a tokenized investment share. And this is a problem. We have a discrepancy here between a liquidity of the fund token itself and the liquidity of the underlying asset. And here there is a lot of work to do. I think there are a lot of opportunities for tokenization platforms to think about how we can create liquidity on the stock market.
Well, you left us with a big challenge, Patrick. It's we reached the hour already, so
Great.
thank you very much. It's been a pleasure listening to all your expertise and things that you had an insight and feedback. I think whoever gets to read it, please follow Patrick. You send him a LinkedIn invite. He's very active in spreading the know-how. So there's a lot of things we can learn from him. And on my end, Patrick, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you. Learn a lot myself, so thanks for that. And without a doubt, we will invite you again to have another webinar with our, well, to everybody who's listening to you, because I think at the fast that everything is evolving, in the next one, we're going to chat about something that was said today that we said we don't know. And then the next one will be, okay, we solved point A. Let's go to point B and discuss that.
Okay. It was also a pleasure for me, Edwin. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay. We started only a few weeks ago to talk, but it's already amazing what we have already talked about, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So, very, very great. And it was really a pleasure to be here with you and with all the people that I don't see. But okay. I hope that it was the same pleasure for them.
Yeah, I have zero doubts about that. Patrick, until next one. Thank you very much, everybody. It's been a pleasure having you all of here. And for the future webinar, we'll let you know when that happens, and we'll try to get someone as good as Patrick. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.